He's on every field, court and diamond, covering your favorite local athletes.
You're obsessed.
I'm dedicated.
Dedicated to your obsession.
He digs deep to find the best stories and doesn't settle for cliche responses.
Tell me!
No, I'm not going to
Tell me!
What's wrong with this guy?
Yeah, you should probably just tell him. He could be very insistent.
And he's not afraid to report the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
That was an amazing killing spree by the other team!
This is the Nothing But Green podcast, presented by the Claremore Progress and CNHI LLC. Here's your host, Progress Sports Editor, Kevin Green.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Nothing But Green podcast. A little bit of a different format this time. Usually you're just used to hearing my voice. This time, I just had to grace you guys with the new haircut of my friend Glen Brockenbush. He is a fellow award-winning sports editor. He is down at the Lawton Constitution. Glen, how you doing today?
Good, Kev. How are you doing, bud?
Oh, man, I am fantastic. Just enjoying the good old outdoors here in Skytook, Oklahoma on my back porch. So ready to talk some football.
Yes, sir. Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I've had you on my podcast a couple times last year, and I was thrilled when you asked me to be on. I know you and I kind of see the release of the yearly Austin Chadwick Pipe Oklahoma magazine. The Pigskin Preview is kind of a holiday in and of itself. So I figured, I'm already kind of in football mode, and it's not even August yet. So I'm stoked, dude.
Exactly. I can just hear like the angels singing when the magazine arrives. And even though we had been getting emails saying that, hey, you're going to be probably getting it on this day, I just wasn't expecting it. So then I opened the mailbox. I was like, what is this big package? And it had my wife's name on it too, for some reason. So I think I had like ordered with her card information or something like that. But I pulled it out and I was like, what is this? And then it said, like Vipe on it and up in the corner. I was like, oh, that's mine. That's mine. I don't think I've ever been so excited for a package to arrive, but I obviously tore that thing open and got to dissecting. So, obviously, because Glenn, he's at work, and then I got to get to work after this. So we're going to try to be expeditious about this, but we've had plenty of time, about a week now, I guess, to look through the magazine. So we're going to give you guys some takeaways from what we saw in the magazine, and then we'll also give you some very early state title predictions just based on what we've read, and then we'll get out of here. All right, sound good? Glenn, you ready?
Let's do it.
You ready? You ready? Say you're ready.
I'm ready.
All right. Well, I guess I'll go ahead and start it. The biggest takeaway that I think anybody can take out of reading this magazine is you just got to take all these rankings with a grain of salt. They have all the usual suspects on there, of course, in these top 10s. You got Jinx at the top. You got Carl Albert at the top in 5A. You got Bixby number 1 in 6A too. All the usual suspects. But and I'm not saying that those number ones are wrong by any stretch, but the further you go down on these top 10 lists, the more iffy it kind of gets, especially when you actually go through and read the summaries. Like, okay, like a team like Blanchard, and 4A, they're a pretty good team, year in and year out. But then you go and I think I can't remember off the top of my head where they're ranked in 4A, but you go and look, and I think it said they had 4 offensive returners starting and only 2 defensive starters, but yet they're ranked so high. And then you leave some teams that have, I'll just give an example. I think Sallisaw, not that they're like a perennial power or anything, and maybe they should be ranked below a team like Blanchard. But I think it said that they had 9 returners on both sides of the ball. Like, that's incredible. Like, if that is accurate, then they should, and they had a decent season last year. Then I think that might be deserving of a possible top 10. I can't remember. I already made out my top 10 list. I don't remember off the top of my head where I have them, but it's just things like that. You just really got to take it with a grain of salt, because for one, you don't really know. Maybe some of those teams that don't have players returning, but they just have good coaching, and those coaches know how to develop these players And that's sometimes that's all it takes, and these high school kids, and that's why some of these programs like Wagner, for example, they're always up there at the top. They're never in rebuild mode. It's because of the coaching staff. So that's definitely something to look forward as well. But just like I said, you just got to take the rankings with a grain of salt. Obviously things will play out as the season goes, but judging high school teams this early, without having seen anything whatsoever, it's pretty much impossible to do, especially when, you might not even be getting accurate information, because I'm pretty sure they send out these questionnaires like really early in the summer to get the magazine printed mid-July. I mean, but what about you, Glenn? What are some things that stood out to you when looking through this?
Well, first and foremost, I completely agree with you. I think that it's a fool's errand to try and really predict what things are going to look like, especially when you consider, and I'll just use an example. You and I discussed recently how Owasso has a couple of move-ins. One happened last year that you're obviously very familiar with, but you mentioned Blanchard, which they're rated 6th, by the way, in Class 4A, and Salisaw is picked to finish 3rd in their own district. Of course, that's a very tough district, but I think, when it comes to things like transfers and stuff like that, I know, for example, we have, sticking with Blanchard, we had a kid in Lawton who was probably going to be a starting quarterback at Lawton Eisenhower if he, was given the chance. And his family member, or his mother, actually got a very good job in Blanchard. They're moving, and so it's like that probably wasn't taken into account whenever they did a lot of those things, even though his name wasn't mentioned in the Eisenhower write-up. In terms of things that stood out to me, I almost felt like I probably. It kind of felt like when I'm not a gambler per se, but it felt like if you bet something, when odds weren't as good, like you could have won more money had you been more, resolute earlier and just, made the commitment at a certain, almost kind of like buying a house or buying a car, get in while the price is good. Is a few weeks ago, I was feeling really good about the price of a certain team in 5A that I thought, oh, they're going to be a sleeper. They're going to be they're a team that maybe not enough people are talking about. And lo and behold, that same team, the McAllister Buffaloes, are ranked 2nd in the state. And I go, well, I guess I'm not that clever after all. They're really talented and they're so young. And of course, they're rated 2nd behind Carl Albert and
almost made the state title game last year.
They almost made the state title game. In fact, that's one thing I've been trying to do is try and do some research, rewatch some games on NFHS Network, and
commitment.
I'm trying, man. Just trying to make sure that I'm better at my job than I feel that I am sometimes. But they're a team worth watching, and I think they're going to be very interesting. 5A's, I feel kind of the same way about 5A as I did last year, where we weren't really sure. I believe El Reno was rated 2nd last year heading into the season. They're not even ranked at all in the top 10. A team like Noble, who 2 years ago was a district champ, they're predicted to not even make the playoffs. And I've watched Noble last year, and they got in a shootout with Lawton MacArthur, and MacArthur won that game, but it wasn't for lack of trying. They have a quarterback in Colin Fisher, who I think is, he's got a cannon for an arm. He's one of the best baseball prospects in the state. As a sophomore, I believe he threw at least one, if not a couple no-hitters this year. And, they're a team worth watching. I think another thing that really stood out to me in terms of the rankings was, Marlowe is obviously a team that I'm pretty familiar with being down here. And, they come in 6th in Class 2A. And 2A, once again, I think is just going to be an absolute, and I figured I would use a wrestling term for you, being the big wrestling fan, is it is going to be a Royal Rumble in Class 2A. It is going to be a free for all. It is going to be. It is going to be a battle royale, and I just jotted down. I went and made a bracket and just jotted down the teams based on how they're predicted to finish. And you could once again see Marlowe playing Metro Christian in a quarterfinal, just as they did last year. And if we're being honest with ourselves, Marlowe is a defensive stop away, probably from winning that game. Metro Christian had to complete a Hail Mary essentially on 4th and forever. They end up scoring with less than a minute to go. Metro Christian goes on to win their second straight title. If Marlowe wins that game, all bets are off. And I've had at least one coach recently who straight up told me he believes Marlowe is the best team in 2A. That he believes in. That, of course, this is from a coach within their district. So, I mean, you know what you know. And so he's obviously very close to Marlowe and sees them quite a bit. But, I mean, that's a team that lost quite a bit, but brings back Jace Gilbert, brings back Julian Mericklin, and brings back Will Bergner, who I think had at least a couple punt returns for touchdowns last year, as well as being one of the best receivers. So, I mean, if it's not Marlowe coming out of that side of the bracket, it's probably Metro again. And you could probably see them playing Beggs or Jones. I mean, just to give you an idea of how much of a bloodbath it could be, based on how they have the district standings, you could have a second-round matchup. I said second-round matchup of Beggs and Vian, which is nuts. Yeah. And that could also be paired up against a matchup like Frederick versus Jones. So I think it's going to be just an absolute toss-up. And then the other thing that really stood out to me was 4A, you know, Tuttle's a team that a couple of years ago looked like a surefire state champ. And then, you know, you obviously have, you know, Wagner, like you said, are always going to be really good. Clinton coming in at number 2. I mean, I think they're really going to prove that last year was no fluke. That's a team that really caught fire. And I remember our good friend of ours, mutual friend, I believe. I think you got to meet him, but Colin Weeder of the Clinton newspaper, he told me midway through the season, he goes, "Man, I just got a feeling about this team. If they catch fire, they can beat anybody." And I mean, shame on me for not believing in them, I guess. But
they went through the gauntlet in the playoffs.
They went through the gauntlet, and you know what? They similar to Noble, but on a much bigger scale. I feel like Caden Powell's a guy that's probably going to go play. I think he's committed to OU for baseball, but that's a guy that's been a starter at quarterback for about 3 years now. And that's another program that those kids are just bred to play sports, and they're going to be very well coached. And I'm really excited to see what happens there. And then I guess, I don't know. I could talk about football all day long. You know this, but I think those are the biggest points that I saw. I mean, 5A is obviously a class that I'm very familiar with. We've got about 4 local teams there. The district that MacArthur is in is kind of getting slept on, I feel like. They only have one team ranked in the top 10. They have Ardmore, I believe, at number 9, and they have them winning the district. MacArthur is going to be an interesting team. They've got a lot of beef up front coming back, and you know, Ardmore's a team that they've beaten the past couple of years. So who knows, man? It's going to be an absolute just anybody's guess, I feel like, in that district.
Right, and you know, I'm glad that you brought MacArthur up, because when I you know, having worked at the Lawton Constitution with you, you know, I always go to the Lawton area schools, you know, just to kind of see what's going on down there still, you know, because, you know, I still know those coaches, you know, and I still want them to do well. You know, I look at MacArthur, and I think it said they had 8 returning offensive starters, 7 returning defensive starters. I like that. I like that a lot in this group of 5A teams. And I think, I mean, they could end up sneaking up and being a top 5 caliber team this year. You know, if they play their cards right. And, you know, and of course, Coach Brett Manning. I mean, he's been there before. He's done the thing. You know, he has a state championship. You know, in 2014. You know, he knows what winning is like. They've had a couple of, you know, so years the past few years, but you know, they kind of got back to form a little bit last year. I think 7-3, 8-3, something like that within the COVID year. So MacArthur is one team that I'm really, really interested in going into this 5A, because, you know, it might not even be Carl Alberts to take, because I think they had 4 on both sides of the ball. Now, I mean, those 4 on each side are probably super, super talented. but, you know, I mean, and then you go down the line, like you mentioned, you got McAllister. I think they have more than half of their starters back on both sides of the ball.
They're young, man.
Both sides of the ball. McGinnis, you know, they're always there. They have a lot coming back. Kawita, 9 on offense, 7 on defense. Are you kidding me? And they were a breakout team last year. They got their quarterback back, Gage Ham, I think his name is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so those are just a few teams that I'm looking for. And like you said, in 4A, just kind of looking through here, a team that I'm really interested in, 4A rise is Cushing. They really intrigue me.
Yeah.
They had a little bit of a run last year as well. Beat some pretty good teams. They have 7 and 6 coming back. So that's something to look at there. In terms of you were talking about 2A, I mean, 2A is going to be absolutely thrilling to watch, because I mean, there's just so many good teams. I mean, you look at least, I mean, there's probably at least 4 or 5 teams that could easily win the state championship, you know, and Marlow being one of them. You know, it just depends on, you know, who's hot at the right time. One team that I really like in 2A is Chandler. And I think that they kind of, you know, they were a dark horse last year. Nobody really paid a lot of attention to them, but they had some big wins against some really good teams.
They gave Marlow all they wanted in that playoff game, and that running back Casimir Hill, I mean, one of the most productive running backs in the state last year, ran for well over 2,000 yards. And I mean, Marlow was a team that really hadn't been punched in the mouth up to that point. Well, they got punched, man. They were losing early in that game. I don't know if I forget the stat. I don't think Marlow had given up a first quarter touchdown or first quarter points through their first like 10 or 11 games. And Casimir Hill kind of tore them up. No, that's a good Chandler. And I'm looking through here. They don't even have Chandler, you know, picked in the top 10.
See, that's another reason why you got to take these rankings with a grain of salt, because Chandler might be the 3rd best team in Class 2A this year, you know, so.
They could be the 3rd best team in Class 2A. They could be the 3rd best team in their own district. It's just such a toss.
Very
you
true.
Really don't know, because Millwood's another team that, again, so much talent, but I know that just penalties killed them in their game against Frederick in the playoffs last year. I mean, as a team that I think had close to 100 yards of penalties in that game. And they had multiple plays, I believe, where you had like more than one personal foul on a play. So that was 30 yards in penalties on one play. It was nuts. And you just can't win that way. But they've got a good coach, and they've got a lot of players coming back that I really feel like they're going to be a team to be reckoned with as well.
And we haven't really talked about 3A yet, but one thing that I want to say, and, you know, I've kind of come to the defense of one of my area teams now, is Verdigris left out of the top 10. And I just think that is absolutely unfathomable. They have a ton of players coming back, and pretty much all the heavy hitters. You got the quarterback coming back. You got the starting running back coming back. You got a couple of starting receivers coming back. You got one of the top linebackers in the nation coming back. Reese Roller, you brought it up with me the other day.
Was it 22 sacks?
I think that was 6th in the country last year, according to Max Preps. And, you know,
my jaw dropped when I read that stat, and I had to text you. I was like, is that right? 22 sacks is ridiculous. That's how many a lot of kids want to have for their entire careers. Kid had it in one season. And you mentioned, and I've not actually watched a ton of Verdigris, but just based on what you told me, I mean, I know that Dylan White is a kid to keep an eye on for darn sure. And I know that Reese Roller is a kid to keep an eye on. That's a program that was playing as good as just about anybody last year. Of course, Holland Hall kind of put them in their place at a certain point during the season, but that just was also, I think, more a testament to how good the Dutch were.
Yeah, that Holland Hall was absolutely incredible last year. They probably, I can't remember exactly all the teams I saw, but they might have been the best team I saw, period, last year live. Well, I don't know, because I saw Carl Albert play, so I can't really say. I don't want to say that Holland Hall would beat Carl Albert, although Max Preps ranked Holland Hall above Carl Albert in the final rankings last year. Whatever. But that would have been interesting to see for sure. But yeah, Verdigris, like I'm mad for them, and I know that coaches don't pay attention to this, and me and you both vote in the AP poll for high school football, and they'll be in the top 10 in that one.
I think so too. Yeah, I think too many people know about them. Yeah,
but to leave Verdigris out of the top 10, I just thought that was. I just couldn't believe it when I saw it, just because of who they have coming back. All the players who had impact plays last year, they're pretty much all back. So I don't know exactly all about like the offensive defensive line, because I'm just going to be honest with you, I don't pay a whole lot of attention to them during the games. But all those skill players, all those guys in the secondary and stuff like that. I mean, they're there. And they're going to be rocking. They're going to be rocking and rolling. So
yeah, and outside of Holland Hall, it's a pretty manageable schedule. I mean, Veneta, I think, is going to be a team to keep an eye on with Kyron Downing.
They have nine players back on both sides of the ball there too. So
yeah. I think I said last year, Downing has already set Veneta's school record for touchdowns. He's got I think he's got 51 career touchdowns already, and so I mean that's a season finale, regular season finale. Verdigris taking having to take a bus there to Veneta, but yeah, I think like you said, you got to take these things with a grain of salt. And you mentioned how coaches don't care and stuff like that. I saw another site or publication rank McAllister number 1 actually in Class 5A.
Is that Prep Zone or?
I believe it was Prep Red Zone, yeah. And I mean, I think there was about 9 retweets, and all of them were from McAllister people. And this was a list of all the number 1 teams, not just writing about McAllister, all the number 1 teams. But you would think that it was only writing about McAllister, just based on the fan. I mean, these things. Why do we even bother ranking teams? I had somebody ask me about that during college football season. It's like, well, why bother ranking a team if you don't know what they've got or what if you haven't seen them play? Why? Because it's fun. We do it because it's fun. Nobody should take this stuff literally. Like, I mean, not to sound jaded or, just disenfranchised at the ripe old age of 31, but I mean, honestly, what we do isn't all that important by the time we play the games, if we're being honest. And, we can sit here and say that we want. And I'm not trying to torpedo your podcast and tell people don't listen to journalists who don't know what we're talking about. I like to think we kind of do, but but it is something where I have no idea who how good Verdigris is going to be versus Veneta or so. We have no clue who's going to be hurt, who's not going to be hurt, how good a team is going to be playing at certain points of the year. But I do think that Verdigris has a very good chance. And 3A is going to be very interesting because I think last year, I was kind of pushing for Heritage Hall at the beginning of the season. And obviously Holland Hall kind of came in and wrecked shop. I really think Heritage Hall, I mean, they have got a lot of talent coming back. But, I mean, I'd be shocked I'd honestly be very surprised, if not shocked, if anybody other than Holland Hall was holding the gold ball at the end of the season, Class 3A.
For sure. And, since you bring up holding gold balls, let's go ahead and get into our state title picks.
Let's do it, sir.
Some of these are just really difficult. Like, I might go back on some of these. I remember saying the same thing last year on your podcast, because there's just so many teams that have so much coming back, and you have to go with your gut feeling. So I'll let you decide. Do you want to start with the smaller schools first, or you want to go big schools first?
Oh, we can start with smaller. That's
all right. Yeah, I might have to go with whatever you say on B and C. I haven't really had a chance to dissect them yet, so I don't really know.
Yeah, and I was at a Class C semifinal a year ago. So Mountain View Gotebo, they're ranked 3rd in Class C, and they're kind of on the fringe of our coverage area. And they bring back an outstanding quarterback in Ryland Belcher. You never want to play the what if game, but Ryland Belcher, loses the ball, and then in that game against Tyrone, and somebody falls on his leg. He basically sprains his ankle just before halftime, tries to go on and play. And what people forget is he's not only their quarterback, he's their starting safety as well. And I mean, the game is never the same after that. I mean, Tyrone absolutely controlled the second half, and you never know. I think Tyrone was probably going to be too much for them anyways. But I mean, I think that if Mountain View Gotebo stays healthy, they've got a very good shot. But I honestly think it's either Tyrone or Timberlake, and I think it's probably Tyrone. I think the Bobcats run it back.
All right. I'm actually going to put off giving picks for B and C, and I'm going to have a column come out in a couple of weeks where I'll actually give all of my picks, my final picks. But just because I haven't actually had a chance to sit down and look at those two classes, I don't want to make myself sound dumb. But I really liked Tyrone last year. I actually think I picked them to win the state championship last year, and I was like the only one. I think I did. I might have picked Timberlake just out of peer pressure. But
no, Tyrone, I mean, they had some big boys, and they bring back Ryland Johnson. They've got some talent, and they just were bigger. And the thing with Mountain View Gotebo is they just weren't that deep. They do bring back, a couple of players beyond Ryland Belcher. I'm trying to remember the kid's name. They bring back Landon Seacrest and Landon Cooper. I mean, they've got talent, but the thing is, in 8-man football, yes, having that one guy can matter, but you also have to have some depth, and they just didn't have the depth to keep up with Tyrone. So it's going to be an interesting class to watch, I think.
I got to ask, did you have a chance to cover Mountain View Gotebo in person last year?
Yeah, I was at that semifinal game.
So it was at Mountain View.
Yeah, it was at Mountain View.
Okay. What's the scene? What's the scene like there? Do you see the Wichita Mountains in the background from the stadium?
I honestly can't remember because it was very dark that night. It was very dark and cold, and I don't remember much about that game other than the nice people of Mountain View just thanking me for being at the game, and because quite frankly we hadn't covered them all year. Funny story about that is I had a lady call me about the week before and said, we have a team in the semifinals, and why haven't you written about us? Well, we just don't sell a ton of papers out there. And I told her that, and she said, well, you'd probably sell more papers here if you wrote about us. I was like, well, that's a fair point. And she said, you know what? Shoot, you don't even need to cover the game. You just write about us. But I will tell you, if you do cover our game, I'm a very good cook. I'll make your meal for you. I'll make you dinner, and you can come to my house and eat dinner. So shout out. What a
roller coaster of a phone call.
Shout out Jan Teal. Shout out to Jan Teal and Jan and Daryl Teal. Jan made me Indian tacos and sweetest family. And the people in Mountain View are great. And I really think that they're going to, trust me, I have them in our preview for this year. And but they're a team to watch. And, you hate to put all your eggs in one guy's basket. But Ryland Belcher goes, so go the Tigers. So if he is able to stay healthy and score, 35, whatever number of touchdowns it was last year, if he can replicate that, I think they're going to have a really good shot at making a semifinal, if not a championship game.
All right. Well, let's. I would love to see Mountain View Gotebo make a run for sure. Well, let's move on to Class B. What do you see amongst those teams?
Well, for the first time in I don't know how long, Shattuck isn't considered the favorite, and Shattuck isn't the defending champ. Dewar came away with the title last year. Laverne, I think, is going to be really tough to beat. Of course, that's a heck of a district when you've got Laverne, Shattuck, and I think kind of a sleeper team. I say a sleeper team. They're ranked number 5, but Balco Forgan. Balco Forgan's a team I saw play against Tipton last year, and they have a couple guys. I believe it was Jaden Hall. They have him in here as an all-Vipe team defensive end, but he's also their quarterback. And you just don't see too many guys that are 6'3", 210, 215 pounds at the Class B level. You really don't.
For sure.
He was impossible to bring down. Oh, and by the way, he also was probably a 4'5", 4'6", 40 guy. Like it was insane. I really think Laverne probably ends up winning it. Again, don't sleep on Dewar or Shattuck. I think that goes without saying, but I think Laverne is probably the team to beat. All
right. Well, now let's get into some territory where I can actually comment. Class A. That's another class where there's a ton of just really decent teams, and a couple of in your coverage area too that I've noticed. So, who do you have taking home the gold ball this time?
Man, it's going to be, and again, and I discussed this with you last week. I went ahead and went to a site that you made me familiar with, is printyourbrackets.com, and I went and kind of set up what a 32 team bracket would look like, and based on what the brackets look like when you pair the the seedings, the playoff seedings, and all that with the districts. And unfortunately for all high school football fans, it appears that if things were to play according to script, we would again only have to see Cashin and Pawhuska in the semifinals. I still think Cashin's a really good team. I think they're probably the best team in Class A. Ben Harmon is a kid who's been there, who's done it. His brother has done it. That's a name that just lives in kind of the annals of Cashin Wildcat football. I think they probably beat Pawhuska. No Bryce Drummond anymore, although if anything, Coach Hennessy can coach up quarterbacks, that's for darn sure. On the other side, it's kind of more murky. I think Ringling or Hooker, Hooker could do something you never really know about those teams up in the Panhandle. I think Ringling or Morrison is probably coming from that side of the bracket. I think that could be just a jawbreaker of a semifinal, man, because Ringling, they just want to run the ball down your throat. Morrison can play great defense. I think that would be just a really nasty football game in the best way possible. And I'd be willing to see it. I think Cashin probably the favorite winning Class A, beating either Morrison or Ringling.
All right. Well, obviously, like all these picks we can change them whenever we want. Full disclosure, but there are so many good teams. I don't know if you noticed this, and I'm not picking this team that I'm about to mention. I'm not picking them to win, but Gore returns every starter on both sides of the ball. 11 on both sides. Gore, yes, unbelievable. They're a good team usually. The
Gore Pirates. I mean, that's a team that they have picked to win that district, and if you're looking. You're looking at Gore as a team that really could make a run. And that's a team that, like you said, always seems to have talent, always seems to kind of be in the hunt. And, I don't know. It's going to be very interesting to see what they do.
But since you went with Cashin, I think I'm going to go with Pawhuska. They just had a heartbreaker last year, 7-6 after averaging like over 60 points per game. Heartbreaking. I know they lost the starting quarterback, the son of a Pioneer woman, but his brother is replacing him, and I've heard that he might be even better than his older brother. So, I think I'll go with Pawhuska. And I think they'll play Ringling in the title game. Though I do love Morrison. I would love to see Morrison there. I covered them a couple of times when I was a stringer for the Stillwater News Press while I was in college at Oklahoma State. And I actually drove all the way from Stillwater to Hollis to cover them in the quarterfinals.
Right, yeah.
And that was like a 4-hour drive, and it was freezing cold, and there were elk all along the side of the road, and I was terrified, I'll tell you that. So I was driving really slow.
Yeah, real quick note about Pawhuska while we're before we leave Class A territory is you mentioned I'm looking through the book right now. Todd Drummond, Bryce's brother, 6'4", 190. Again, I don't know what Pioneer Woman is putting in the food over there, but man, I need to give me one of her cookbooks once I have kids. Goodness gracious. And then, Mason Gilkey, the Oklahoma State commit, I've talked to a buddy of mine who covers the Huskies, and, he said, the offense probably doesn't hurt Mason's stats, but he's darn good. And, it's not too often that you see Class A kids get offers to places like Oklahoma or Oklahoma State. But, I mean, Mason Gilkey, I think, is legit. He can play at just about any level. And then the final point about Pawhuska, maybe candidate for the all-name team, Lashara Wildcat, is a defensive end, and I just think that's an awesome name. So just throwing that out there.
Yes, I agree. Let's go to 2A, and we talked about quite in depth about 2A just a few minutes ago. Yeah. You mentioned Mexico Christian. Now they've won 2 state titles consecutively, and they have 6 returning on offense, I think, 5 returning on defense. So pretty decent numbers. And then you've got teams like Beggs, Jones, Washington, OCS, Marlowe, Millwood, even Eufaula, Chandler, teams like that, all right there vying for that state championship position. But who do you see hoisting the ball in 2021?
Man, Metro is a team that just, again, to be the man, you got to beat the man, as our good friend, the Nature Boy, once said. And, it's until somebody knocks off Metro, I'm probably tending towards the Patriots. I think a quarterfinal game against Marlowe would be very enticing once again. The other side, sneaky to have Beggs versus Jones in a state quarterfinal. When you talk about Carson May, recent commit to the Iowa Hawkeyes, that's a quarterback that is probably going to throw the ball about as well as anybody at the small school level in Oklahoma. And then Beggs, of course, has a couple players that are D1 prospects. I really think it's probably between Metro and Beggs for me. And just to be different, I think I'll pick Beggs to beat Metro. I think it's really close. I think Beggs probably still has that taste in their mouth from a couple years ago when they lost the semifinal to Metro Christian in a very close game. CJ Brown, they've got just so much talent there. There at Beggs, and I really think this could be their year.
What happened to them last year in the playoffs? I don't remember.
If I remember correctly, oh goodness, I can't even remember now, because that whole thing was just absolute. It was just what's the word? It was like 7 18-wheelers just meeting at one intersection. I mean, it was just the fact that you had Vian playing. Was it Vian? I believe playing Metro like super early on and in the playoffs, but I can't for the life of me remember exactly. I'm trying to find it as quickly as possible, but I feel like they faced somebody obviously very tough, but I can't remember exactly who it was.
All right. Well, I think I'm going to go with, it's so tough because I want to pick Beggs, but at the same time, I could see them, crouch down crying on the turf at the end of the season because they lost again. So it's just tough. You know what? I'll go with Beggs. I'll go with them. Because, like you said, they have so much talent.
Beggs lost to Washington in the semifinals, 38-22. And Washington's another school that can get things done. And
you know what? Since you reminded me of that, I'm gonna change it. You know what? Metro Christian. I'm going with Metro.
Okay.
I'm going with Metro Christian.
Yeah, it's again, it's just an absolute it's just an absolute car pileup. I mean, it is going to be you could literally just spin a twister wheel with a bunch of logos on it and pick a state champ that way. I feel like there's probably about 7 or 8 teams that could have a legit shot at taking home Class 2A. I really feel that way. I think Marlowe, again, they lose some really good pieces. They lose a lot on the offensive line, but I mean, that's a program that, again, just a couple of years ago was in 3A. I mean, that's a program that probably has more players on the field, just pure numbers, than a lot of other schools do at their level. I think Marlowe and Metro, Beggs, Jones, OCS, I think those 5, plus Washington, I feel like those 6 are probably the teams to watch. That any of those teams could really, really do some damage, and don't sleep on a team like Eufaula. I feel like they could make a run.
Yes, absolutely. And moving on to Class 3A, Metro Christian, obviously in 2A, being a private school, it's top-loaded private school in Class 3A. I mean, you got Holland Hall, Heritage Hall, Lincoln Christian. They're probably the best 3 teams in 3A.
Yeah.
You got to think it's going to be one of them. As much as I would like to see a team like Verdigris make that step, but it's just tough to beat teams that have just been there consistently. So I'm sure that you probably have it narrowed down to one of those three schools as well. Which of those private schools do you think is going to get it done this time?
Man, I think it's really tough to pick against the state champion. I know I'm being super interesting and not boring at all in this podcast. I really feel like, and for as much talent as Heritage Hall has, and they're returning a ton of talent, I just feel like Holland Hall is a team that just kind of ran roughshod over everybody last year. They were maybe as dominant in their classification as anybody else was in the state last season. And that includes Carl Albert in 5A. I think they probably you saw what they did to Verdigris last year. And you saw what they did in the state title game. I think this is a team that's prepared to make a repeat run. And, that's like you said with and I know this was kind of Anadarko's kind of chip on their shoulder when they were winning titles in the early 2010s is, I think I forget what the player was chanting, but I think they started like chanting public school after beating whoever, Holland Hall or Heritage Hall or one of those private schools in 3A. It's one of those things where I understand why people would get annoyed at the preppy prep schools winning all the time. But you know what? You can't argue with what Tad Gross has done at Holland Hall or what Brett Bogert has done at Heritage Hall. I mean, they're absolutely some of the best programs in the whole state. But I think Holland Hall probably takes it.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Holland Hall as well. But just to kind of add a little anecdote to what you said about Anadarko, I like Anadarko this year to maybe make some noise. They've got some guys returning, and they had a really good season last year, so I kind of like them.
Yeah, and what's interesting about them too is especially in terms of the running back position, which has obviously been a position that they've been known for a long time, is they had a running back in Xavier Gailey who had a great season last year but got hurt at times, and in steps Lucas Camp and does outstanding work as well as they ran their way toward a good playoff spot. Lucas Camp is back. Carson Williams is back at quarterback. I think that's a team that's ready to take the next step. And of course, Kent Jackson's a guy who's been there before, obviously. So I agree with you. I think Anadarko is a team to watch. They are rated 6th in Class 3A, and I think that's about right.
Yeah, like they just seem like a team that could do something special. All right, 4A. Moving on up now. We're getting.
Did you pick anybody in 3A?
Oh, you're right. I didn't. I think I did say Holland Hall, didn't I?
Okay. If you didn't, you did now. So.
Yep, I'm going with the Dutch. Yep, sorry about that. I don't know if I did or not.
It is what it is. Yeah.
All right, so 4A. We talked about them earlier as well. It's kind of a logjam at the top, and a lot of perennial powers up there vying. So, what do you think? Who's taking it?
Man, I don't know enough about this Tuttle team to really fully know why they're ranked number one. I'm not saying they shouldn't be. I just don't know enough about them. I do know that Clinton beat every team really that they were expected to down the stretch, with the exception of the outstanding Wagner team. I think the Red Tornadoes, maybe this is just a homer pick for my good buddy Colin, but I really think that they have a shot to take it. And I think that's going to be a very interesting, Class 4A. It's going to be super interesting to see what side of the state. It's not quite as pronounced in 6A or 5A, but that kind of east-west divide. You look at Wagner, Cushing, Poto, those are teams that down here we just don't know a ton about. And meanwhile, Tuttle and Cash and Clinton and Blanchard are obvious, and Weatherford. We can't forget about them. They kind of had their plans derailed whenever Ethan Downs went down in the playoffs and they lost to Cushing. But I think Cushing's a team that could really give people some trouble, and obviously don't sleep on Wagner. But I think Clinton wins it, and I'm definitely not picking with my heart instead of my head. So.
Yeah, it's so tough, just looking at numbers, who else coming back for all these teams. But I think I'm just gonna go chalk, and I'll say Tuttle. I'd say Tuttle wins it in a close one. I don't know when they would play Clinton, but I think Clinton is either the best team or at least the second best team this year. But I also do like Cushing. I think Cushing could make a push. But since there's just so much unknown, Tuttle just seems like a safe pick, so I'm just going to go Tuttle for now.
Yeah, makes sense.
All right, 5A. We've had the same team win 5 of these in a row.
Why do you got to make it so boring? Why do you guys make it so boring, man? Give somebody else a shot.
My alma mater has just been running woodshed over these guys in 5A. Can they make it 6 straight? Has there ever been a team in Oklahoma win 6 straight titles? I don't know. What do you think? Do you think Carl Albert gets it done for a 6th straight season?
I want to say no just to spite you, but you're too nice of a guy, so I can't do that. But I also think that it's really kind of like what you said on some of those other programs. Their program that doesn't rebuild, they reload. And for the first time since I've been at the paper, although, he played, I guess he wasn't the starter from game 1 in 2017. For the first time in, 4 or 5 years, no Ben Harris quarterback. You don't have Javion Hunt. You don't have a D1 running back. Buddy Bazell, I watched him last year, and that guy is just, I don't know what position he plays at the next level. He'll play somewhere because he's too freaking big and powerful not to. It's really hard for me to pick against the champ. I'm going to go Carl Albert. I think McAllister and, I think Coweta or Bishop Kelly could really give them some trouble from the other side of the state. I know they got Collinsville at 3. Bishop Kelly was a team that I had in my top, 2 or 3 for most of last season. And then Coweta, like you said, they bring back their quarterback. They bring back a ton of talent. And Coweta's a program that I feel like has kind of been due. They really have kind of just been snuffed out. And that's a district. That's such a freaking district, man. When you've got McAllister, Coweta, Bishop Kelly, Shawnee, Durant, and Edison. I mean, Shawnee's no pushover either with Jalen Orange at running back and who ran for over 1,600 yards. I think they're a team, I think McAllister and Carl Albert in the title game, and I'm taking the Titans.
Yeah, man, I so badly want to be a homer, but at the same time, do I really think Carl Albert's going to win again?
If anyone, if there was ever a year to break the streak, I feel like it's probably this year, because by next year you've probably got another, quarterback kind of, you've got guys kind of in motion. I feel like they don't return just a ton. I feel like they're just vulnerable enough this year, and plus new head coach.
Yep. See, they have 4 players returning on both sides of the ball. Carl Albert does.
Wow.
That is very few. Very few.
Yeah.
Of course, I know the culture firsthand. And they are very capable. And
just spit it out. You're gonna pick them.
I don't know, man. I don't know, because I really like McGinnis too. I think McGinnis they could possibly get back and finally get over the hump, that Carl Albert hump because it's been 5 of the last 6 state championship game, or 4 of the last 5 have been Carl Albert McGinnis, and Carl Albert's beat them every time. That's just got to be really frustrating. And if there's some team that can make that jump, it might be McGinnis this year. I think they lost that Luke Tarman or whatever.
Yeah, Luke Tarman is gone, and that was a guy that you don't want to say, one player does everything, but he was kind of a do-everything guy for them. Last year against Eisenhower, I think he accounted for 7 touchdowns, and he was a stud. And I don't know how, you can't necessarily replace a guy like that 1 for 1, but they're obviously a program to watch. That's a program that hasn't won a state title since 2007, when they were back in 4A, and they went back to back. And, I think they definitely got the horses to to do that in that district, though. It's gonna. You obviously have to go through Carl Albert, though.
Yeah, and Collinsville is another really intriguing because they have their starting quarterback coming back, and that dude was an absolute beast. And some really odd things happened in that game in the semifinals last year, and Carl Albert got out big on them in the first half, but they fought their way back, and if not for a couple of fluke plays, where Ben Harris throws an interception, and then the Collinsville guys tackle from behind, fumbles it, and then Ben Harris picks it up and returns it for a touchdown. I mean, a double turnover for a touchdown. I mean, that's crazy, and that game ended up being 45-28.
Yeah. Yeah, Andrew Carney is the quarterback for Collinsville. He returns. Yeah, that's a program that obviously has tons of pedigree as well, and has made the title game. I don't know. They haven't. I don't know if they've won it. They haven't won it in Class 5A. I know that much, but It really, if it's not Carl Albert, it could literally be anybody.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, for some reason, something's telling me Carl Albert's not going to win it this year.
It seems like it should be easy, but it's not at all.
Yes, like if I don't pick Carl Albert, then who am I going to pick? McAllister, Collinsville, McGinnis, Coweta. Like, I mean, any of those teams that I just listed, I think have a legit chance.
You could pick any of those teams, feel really good about it, and simultaneously feel not great about anything you just came out of your mouth. It's such a bonkers class, I feel like, this year. Potentially. Again,
absolutely.
We'll find out more about Carl Albert, after those first couple games when they played Midwest City, Del City, Shawnee. I think we'll see for sure which Carl Albert we're going to get this season.
Yeah, and another thing is, too, if you put Carl Albert against any of these teams, let's say like week 3, I think that any of those teams could beat Carl Albert. But the thing is that Carl Albert saves their best football for the playoffs. So I think, man, just with a new quarterback, oh man,
we ain't got all day, KG. Come on now.
I'm just gonna go with Carl Albert.
There you go.
Just simply because I have a feeling they're not going to get it done this year. Like, the streak's going to end, but I have to go with Carl Albert simply because I don't know who of McAllister, Collinsville, McGinnis, or Coweta who I'd rather think has the best chance.
It's hard to trust a team until you've seen them do it, and those other teams haven't done it recently. So,
yeah, I'll go with Carl Albert. I'll stick with the safe pick.
Yeah,
we're very exciting.
Yeah.
All right, 6A2 I think is a little easier. Obviously, Bixby's the favorite. You got Choctaw, too. Choctaw almost knocked them off. Here's the thing, though. Bixby is just too good. Bixby will win again. They have a lot of guys coming back. They have the Presley kid coming back, who Max Preps ranks as the 3rd best running back in the country. So,
and Braylon Presley is one of the best football players in all of Oklahoma, but then, right behind him, you got Luke Haas, who's maybe one of the top tight ends in the entire country. Every school wants him. Choctaw is so intriguing because that's a program that was hardly on anyone's radars, I feel like, a few years ago. And now they've got D1 recruit after D1 recruit. Steele Wassel comes back at quarterback. He's got at least one offer, I believe, from Virginia Tech. The McConnell kid on the line, Deshaun Brown, possibly getting offers from Oklahoma State. Choctaw is just an interesting program.
I think they're going to be in the title game again.
I think in the title game.
I think everybody else.
I think Booker T might have something to say about it, depending on where they wind up in the. According to the bracket that I printed out, I believe you probably have a Bixby Booker T semifinal, and Booker T, and of course they're in the same district as Choctaw and Booker T. Bixby is, and I feel like Booker T with Lathan Boone coming back. You got Gentry Williams, the do everything athlete. They're going to be a tough out. But I think Choctaw makes it to the title game against Bixby. Choctaw barely beats out Midwest City, who I think is also going to be really good. But I think it's Bixby and Choctaw again, and I'm taking the Spartans.
Yep. And Choctaw could easily win it. They had a chance last year.
Yeah.
They had the ball last. If they score, they win.
Yeah, they're incredibly good.
And I think Bixby and Choctaw both return about the same number of players on both sides of the ball, and that's why I got to give the edge to Bixby, just because they just somehow find a way.
Always.
You know, they're just a machine, and they refuse to go down. And I think Bixby takes it. All right, we're on to the final one. I think that me and you might have differing opinions on this one, because there are some really good teams in this class. Let's hear what you have to say about 6A1.
So I reached out to you not long ago via text asking you about this team in particular, because I'm so intrigued by the amount of overall talent that Owasso has. What a boon that was getting Chris McClellan, who's a D1 prospect that has been offered by the likes of A&M, by the likes of Oklahoma State. Edmond Santa Fe is a team that really intrigues me. And then obviously you got Jinx and Union. I think Owasso makes the title game again. I still have on my piece of paper Jinx/Union as the winner in that game, because I can't freaking pick at this point. I think it's so difficult.
It is.
Just a gut feeling, regardless of who wins that game. Let's say right now it's Jinx. Regardless of who wins that game, I think I'm taking Owasso to take home the title. And I think that's just how I feel on today, July 21st. I'll probably feel different in like 8 days. I have no clue. I really don't know what to make of this class whatsoever at this point.
Yes, I feel the same way. And last year I was one of the only people on the Jinx bandwagon going into the playoffs, because everyone was like Owasso, and I was like, Jinx has been playing better. And at the end of the year, I think Jinx was the best team in the state, although they did lose to Bixby early in the year. I think if they played again, I think Jinx would have beat Bixby. So, and Jinx brings back a lot. However, you probably don't remember this. My state title prediction for last year was Jinx versus Union. And that's because Union, even though they lost like their first 4 or 5 games, they closed the season really strong. Mm-hmm. They ended up losing in the semifinals to a really good Edmond Santa Fe team. But looking at what they returned, 8 on offense, 10 on defense, I think Union will have just enough to get to the state title game and edge out Owasso to make it once again. Jinx and Union going back and forth. Jinx won it. Union's got to get back on the board. They got to keep up with the rival. I think Union takes home the 6A1 state championship as of now. Like you said, it's our picks are very fluid. It's hard to know.
We should point out that I had the semifinals listed as I did. I was going based off of the idea that, or did I have? Yeah, I was going based off the idea that I had Owasso winning that district. Now the magazine has Union edging out Owasso in District 2. If those were flipped, then obviously you could end up having a Jinx versus Union finals matchup like we used to have every single year. It's going to be super interesting to see how that plays out, because I really feel like this could be a year where your district standing absolutely determines your road to the state championship game, because if you don't have to go through Owasso for the final game, or you don't have to go through Union, that could be definitely advantageous to you. So
absolutely. Well, I think that just about brings our show to an end. Glen Brockenbush, I don't think I even mentioned your last name earlier. I probably did, but
probably.
But thank you for coming on. Yeah. And just in case, I don't know how this is going to be viewed. I know it's being recorded right now, but if Glen is the primary face on the recording, it's because we had to use his account, because for some reason mine doesn't allow me to record. So if you were wondering why the host is the small screen, that's why. But at least that's the way it looks on mine. I don't know what yours is doing. I don't know if it's switching between who's talking or what. But but it was fun. I'm sure that you're gonna host your own podcast again here coming up in a few weeks, and I'd obviously love to talk more about these and see if our picks change by the time you do that. That
probably will. I
undoubtedly, and I would have a B and a C champion by then. But But Glenn, go ahead and tell people. I know that people up in my neck of the woods here in Northeast Oklahoma, Green Country, probably don't care a whole lot about Southwest Oklahoma football. Yeah. But just in case, tell them where they can follow you on social media.
So you can follow me at Glen Brockenbush. It's capital G, capital B, BROCKENBUSH. It's at Glen Brockenbush on Twitter, and at www.swoknews.com. You can get a cheap daily subscription to just read our stuff on Saturdays and Sundays for high school football, if that's what you want to do, or you can get a yearly subscription, whatever. And I think that's my only social media. I don't do Instagram because I'm not a pretty lady or a pretty dog. So, I think that's pretty much it, man. So, looking forward to it.
And let me say this, even if people don't subscribe to the Lawton Constitution, which they, I'm not saying people in Northeast Oklahoma should, right. But the Lawton Constitution is a phenomenal paper, won the Sequoia Award this year in Division I, which is a huge deal. And Glenn, of course, won the sports story category in Division I in the what's it called, the OK Press Association Better Newspaper Contest for a second straight year, and he placed third in that division as well. So if you follow him, you're definitely going to get your clicks worth from Glenn, because not only does he tweet about high school sports that you care about, he also has pretty good opinions on professional sports. I'm always seeing him tweeting about stuff, and I'm like, that's a good point, and then he'll share some of his columns, that are of national interest. So Glenn knows what he's talking about. I think that he's definitely one of the most knowledgeable sports writers, I think, in the entire state. I think he's up there with some of those older people at the Tulsa World and the Oklahoma, just simply because, he loves his sports, and he especially loves his Dallas Cowboys.
Sometimes I do. Sometimes I love them.
And he knows what he's talking about. Unlike me, I'm a very casual sports fan outside of high school sports, honestly. Like I didn't watch a single game of the NBA Finals. I was curious as to who would win, but I didn't watch any of the games. I only really watch OU and OSU football. Other than that, I don't really pay a whole lot of attention to sports outside of high school sports. So if you want views on things other than just high school sports, which is what I give you, Glenn is definitely the way to go. But all right.
Dude, man, now that you're going to make me cry and blush.
Now that I'm done worshiping Glen Brockenbush, we could get out of here. But Glenn, thanks again for joining.
Thanks, dude. Thank you. Man.
I look forward to talking. Kevin. Yeah, I look forward to talking more high school football with you over the coming months. It'll be fun. I'm sure that we're going to be texting back and forth plenty this year.
Oh, it'll be here before we know it. I already did my first call with the coach from my preview section today, so it'll be here before we know it, man.
Yes.
So yeah, absolutely, dude. Thanks for having me. We'll be talking soon.
All right, take it easy, man. Thanks.